Welcome, listeners. This is Daniel Faust again from Learn and Live. We're going into Great Sex Part 2. I'm going to give you a quick synopsis of Part 1 if you weren't listening, and basically saying that great sex, that time of sex that you over and have early in your marriage or maybe during vacations and whatnot, why is it only great during that time? And we basically clarified that communication brings that intimacy, which goes over and brings great sex. And you're saying to yourself, communication, I can just go over and figure out a few techniques and I'll do just fine. And you're saying, yeah, that would be great if you could figure out all the techniques, but those things don't last so long, especially in the years of longevity in your marriage. So I would recommend you to go over and continue to listening on this podcast to understand how to communicate, because this is the most important thing to go over and to do in your relationship, is to have great communication. So if you're on Facebook, we are live. So if you want to go over and chat, you can go check us out on Spreaker. And now you guys have a post for it. So we are live. So if you have any messages you want to go over and to ask, you can. But this will be only a 15-minute podcast. So let's jump into great sex via communication. So briefly, we talked about last time, you need to understand your motor, outgoing and reserved. And again, we fluctuate between outgoing and reserved. So you need to know where you sit at on a regular basis. And we went over and talked about priority of task versus people. And again, we vacillate between one and the other. But you need to also understand those two basic questions. What is your motor? Are you more outgoing and reserved? And what's your priority? Are you more task and people? Once you understand that, you understand the basics of communication. Again, this question's probably foreign to you, especially if you're not used to this type of environment, trying to figure out yourself, especially when it comes to great sex. Again, this is going to be the most important thing. So when you learn all the ins and outs of positions and toys and other things and whatnot, you'll be able to go over and have more fun in the bedroom once you understand these things, because men and women are totally different, and we're totally different also in personality style. Can't just go figure out what right buttons to press. You need to go understand how to connect with people to go over and to have that great sex that we're talking about. So let's mosey in. So let's say you are more outgoing and more task oriented. You would be the dominant style. And again, we're explaining the extremes on communication so you guys have an understanding. So as we talk about this, don't assume that all people just have one style. We are a blend of everything, but I'm just giving the basics for today. So if you're outgoing and task-oriented, this is your primary engine. This is what you thrive on. You tend to be a tad dominant. You can also be a tad direct and demanding, decisive, determined, a doer, and you can be a tad defiant. This is brought in the bedroom. This is brought out of the bedroom. So we're going to talk about what this looks like out of the bedroom today, and then we're going to talk about in the next coming weeks what each of these styles look at in the bedroom, what it looks like. So keep on listening as we go. So you're dominant, direct, demanding, decisive, determined, doer, and you can be a tad defiant. You tend to make decisions quickly. You tend to be direct on how you talk and how you speak. You're very determined on whatever you go over and do. You just like to get the task done. You're a doer. You can be a tad defiant because you're not asking permission for whatever you're doing. Again, this can affect in the bedroom and outside the bedroom. So let's say you don't radiate with that style. Maybe you're more the outgoing and people-oriented style. You tend to be maybe more inspiring, more influencing, more impressionable, more interesting, impressive, involved, and you can be a tad illogical. These are the people-oriented people. They love to influence and do creative things, again, inside and outside the bedroom. They're very impressive on what they go over and do. Like I can go one-hand clap, for example, and we're very involved with the person that we're with. We're very involved with the people that we are with. We can be a tad illogical because we can make decisions on things without all the facts. Think about that inside and outside the bedroom. So we are live, and if you have any questions on that, go over and text us in on the chat, or you can listen via Facebook, of course. So let's say you don't radiate with this style. You're not outgoing in people and you're not outgoing in tasks. This is not the majority of the population. This is only about 35% of the population. So let's jump into the other 65%. Let's say you're more reserved and people-oriented. You're probably more supportive, more stable, steady, sweet, status quo, shy, and you can be maybe a tad of a sucker. Again, these words are supportive, stable, steady, sweet, status quo, shy, and you can be a tad of a sucker. These people like to go through and through. They are the steady Eddie. They're very sweet. They don't like to talk too much unless it's connected, really deep relationships. The person's not going to jump out in front of lots of people. They're going to keep very quiet. They're going to be very sharing with very few people. And intimacy for them, when they share, it takes a very long time. This is inside and outside the bedroom. They can be a tad shy. You can reference that wherever you want to reference that at. And they can be a tad sucker because they might not know how to say no. They might say yes to a lot of things, and then you find out they should have said no in many different things. So let's think about that inside and outside. Again, we'll get into more details on that next week on that. Again, we're talking about the basics of communication today, and we're going to talk about the more in-depth on the sexual personality styles and what this communicates in the bedroom in the following weeks, so keep listening along. Our last style, if you resonate with this, is the C style. They can be cautious, calculating, competent, cognitive, contemplative, careful, and they can be a tad cold. What do I mean by that? I'll get that in a minute. Again, they are very cautious, calculating, competent, cognitive, contemplative, careful, and cold. These people think. They're the ones that are calculating through all the whys. They're very cognitive in what they go over and listen to. If you guys are listening right now, you're probably questioning if this is right information. You can actually look this up through Dr. Matson. I'm forgetting his last name right now, and I apologize. But you can look up him as the emotional intelligences and that. It goes before the emotional intelligence book, but it goes through those lenses. I'll quote on Facebook this specific reference. I kind of fit more on the I reference, and since we're doing this live, it makes it a little difficult sometimes, but I'll definitely get you that reference in the chat. So they can be careful, and they can be a tad cold. They don't show their affect. They don't show their emotion. And again, that is inside and outside the bedroom. So think about those things as they're going over and displaying those things. So those are the 4 personality styles in a nutshell. And I'm going to give a little bit more because we have a little bit more time. I'm going to give you what they like. And this is more outside the bedroom. We'll talk about more inside the bedroom later on in the following weeks. So if you can continue to listen, we'll try to make this more regularly at a certain time. If you guys are listening, not live and listening later on recorded, if this time doesn't fit for you live, please go over and send feedback on Facebook or on Spreaker. That would be greatly appreciated. All right, so let's dive in what the D's like. They like to win. They like to plan for the future. They like new ideas. They like results. They like being their own boss. They like to move fast in both modalities, in and outside the bedroom. Again, we'll get into more details on that next week. And they like a challenge. So they like to win, plan for the future, like new ideas, like results, be their own boss. They like to move fast, and they like a challenge. So those are your D's in a nutshell. What about your I's? They like to be liked, in and outside the bedroom, guaranteed. They like to express their ideas and feelings. They like being in front of a group. That's definitely not outside. That's not definitely inside the bedroom. They like surprises. They like lots of activities, and they like recognition. Again, they like to be liked. They like to express their ideas and feelings. They like being in front of a group. They like surprises. They like lots of fun activities, and they like recognition. That is huge. So let's jump in also back to the S's. What do they like? They like to be accepted. They like teamwork and cooperation. That's only publicly. Just remember, they're not going to want that privately. They like sticking with what works. They like harmony. That is huge, inside and outside the bedroom. They like things to stay the same. Again, we'll get into that later. And they like routine. So they like to be accepted. They like teamwork and cooperation. They like sticking with what works. They like harmony. They like things to stay the same. And they like a routine. So that's your S's in a nutshell. And we still have a few minutes. Let's go through the C's. They like to be right. They like to know what's expected of them. They like an established pattern. They like clear instructions. Again, this can be inside and outside the bedroom. They like finishing what they start. And they like organizing things. So they like to be right. They like to know what's expected of me. They like an established pattern. They like clear instructions. They like finishing what they start. And they like organizing things. So now that you have a basics on what the communication styles of your significant other, what percentage of the population do you really think that they are? Let's go over that for a few minutes since we have a few minutes left. So the D's, they are 10% of the population. So if you're going over and dating their primary style, only 10% of them you're going to run into. If you're going over and dating a high I, they're roughly 25 to 30% of the population. So you're more than likely going to go run to them as their primary style. The S's, they have 30 to 35%. And the C's are 20 to 25%. Again, these wax and wane through this particular thing. So you're going to want to look this stuff up. If you want to read a book on this, for the basic on the personality styles, it's Positive Personality Profiles. If you want to go over and read a little ahead, I can send you a link on our books also. It's called Body and Soul. That's what we're going to be going through. This is what the Great Sex series is about. So here's some secret tips for them before we close out today, because we have about a few minutes left. So secret tip, if you're dealing with the dominant person, and again, this actually can go inside and outside the bedroom, at least I've seen over the years, is D's. Before you can be in authority, you must first learn to be under authority. That is huge. That is huge. Both places, inside and outside the bedroom. I's, it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. Again, depending on the situation, it can reflect in both places. S's, don't be afraid to say what part of no you don't understand. Again, that is huge in both places. There might be times that you're having intimacy and you have to go over and say no and don't just say yes, because it could be sexual pain. There could be things that you don't want to do. It could be humiliation, for example. So definitely want to know how to say no inside and outside the bedroom. And C's, your last secret tip is people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. You guys show your heart on your sleeve. And again, I would recommend that inside and outside the bedroom. So let's give you one more freebie for tonight, and then we'll end, unless any questions come up. Would love to have you guys ask some questions. Secret fuel for the D's is getting results. And you're going to see this inside and outside the bedroom. They're looking for getting results. And sometimes they look for themselves. Again, we'll get into more detail on that next week. Your secret fuel for the high I's is having fun. And in that particular regard, I'm going to do a little spoiler right now. They want it for you to have fun. They usually go look for that in intimacy. So if you have a high I husband or a wife, they're going to want to please you, just so you know. So that's a great thing. So if you're dating and looking and you want for them to go serve you, go over and do that. Not as a slave, of course, but if you're looking to have fun, you probably won't be dissatisfied too often. And if two I's are dating together, oh yeah. S's, what's their secret fuel? Peace and harmony. That's what they're going looking for. So make sure that the bedroom goes over and shows peace and harmony. And for the C's, your secret fuel is quality, answers, value, and being correct. Again, not every single thing that we're talking about communications reflects inside the bedroom, but next week will be our time to go over and talk about that. So we hope this goes over and builds you some of a foundation on helping out with your relationships. We're going to keep these podcasts about 15 minutes a pop until we get a big enough audience and get some chat. So we hope that you learned and lived today instead of live and learn, and hopefully your relationships thrive instead of survive. This is Daniel Faust, or as I used to be called, Faust Man on the radio, signing off on this podcast. You guys have a great evening. Thank you.